Master, master, master of pendulums pulling your strings. Summon infusion synchro Zixies.
Oh, hi. Sorry you had to hear that. I'm, not much of a singer. It's kind of weird how that was a song about, drugs creeping in, controlling your actions, taking over your life, and I've seen people do that with card games. Not as much anymore. Back when Magic the Gathering released, in full, people went absolutely crazy about that one. Whew. But anyway, as long as you're here, how about that Master of Pendulum deck? So popular it almost sold out in my city on the first day. That had me running around. And no friggin' wonder, this might be one of the stronger structure decks I've ever seen. Yes, I loved Synchron Extreme, but this is intense. And again, 10 more new cards, so let's not dilly-dally. I'm literally writing this the day after the deck released, the day I got it, so I pulled most of this together on the bus ride home. And I'm recording this a little over a week after that. So I'm a slow-ass Canuck who can't make videos on time, so sue me. Let's get this show on the road anyway with the most obvious of the new cards, the worry-free Dragon Pulse and Dragon Pit Magicians. Actually, wait, first. A little bit on Pendulum Monsters? I promise I'll make it quick and simple. This mechanic scared off a lot of casual fans. Pendulum Monsters are part monster card, part spell card. They have their own spots on the game mat, one on either side for when they're activated as spells. The little see-through box over the picture is their spell effect, but when they're playing the part of spells, their monster effects don't apply, and when they're summoned as monsters, their monster effects apply, but not the spell effects. And some of them are normal monsters with no effect. And some are effect monsters with no spell effects. Then why are you even here? Shoving that empty-ass box in my face? Get out of here! Play Mystic Space Typhoon, you jerk. Oh, right. When they're sent from the field to the graveyard by any means, they're sent to the top of the extra deck, face up. And from there, they can come back. See the little arrows on either side of them? Well, that's their scale. And when you have a pendulum in each zone, you can special summon from your hand or extra deck as many monsters as you can, with levels in between the numbers of their scales. Not equal to, in between. So having a 1 in one zone and an 8 in the other, you can summon anything between levels 2 and 7. I'll throw up a few examples. There, that's how it works. You can do that once per turn, constantly cycling your monsters as long as you have pendulums to work with. They work best in large groups. And now that the basics are out of the way, let's jump into the most usable pendulums in the deck, the Dragon Pulse and Dragon Pit Magicians. Dragon Pulse and Dragon Pit are just the best generic pendulum monsters out there now. Normal monsters with neat, almost un-Yu-Gi-Oh! Like art and detailed lores, Dragon Pulse has a pendulum scale of 1 and Dragon Pit has a scale of 8. Most cards with scales like that have restrictive conditions, like they only work with other pendulums of the same kind, or can only pendulum summon certain kinds of monsters. But these guys have no restrictions, able to pendulum summon any monster level 2 to 7, which is a pretty big deal. Their pendulum effects are pretty beneficial in the right circumstances. If there's another magician in the other pendulum zone, like each other or most of the other pendulum monsters in the deck, by the way, all these magician, perform pulls, and odd eyes work with each other, probably because the perform pulls weren't working out on their own, then they can discard other pendulum monsters from the hand to destroy certain cards. Pulsey destroys one face-up monster, and Pity destroys spells and traps. That can be a bit of a pain without prep though. Pendulums go to the extra deck when they're destroyed on the field, but not from the hand, so that's one way to get them into the graveyard. So depending on how you built your deck, that can be a huge disadvantage. Most pendulum decks don't have good recovery from the graveyard, so all depending, you might just be tossing them in the bin that way. That came out a little sadder than I meant. Moving on without further ado, let's move on to all the other magician pendulums. Wisdom Eye Magician is, well, something. Not sure if he looks cool or is trying so hard to look cool that he's lame. Either way, he's gonna die. Okay, hear me out on that one. As a monster, his monster effect applies in the hand. discarding him to the graveyard to reset a monster's pendulum scale. Some monster scales change based on various effects, usually their own. Wisdom Eye smacks that Schmidt back into place. You heard me, gazer magicians and DD scientist dudes. Get back in line and give me free reign. It only lasts a turn, but sometimes that's all you need to flood the field. Personally though, this one's pendulum effect is best to me. Similar to Odd Eye's Pendulum Dragon, which can destroy itself during the end phase to pull a low attack pendulum monster out of your deck to your hand, it can blow itself up if there's a Perform Polar Magician in the other pendulum zone, and take a magician from the deck right to its now vacant spot. This is obviously great, and since they're not being played from the hand, things with playing restrictions like, say, the ever-obnoxious Time Gazer Magician, which can only be played if you control no monsters, have those restrictions bypassed. Finally. Time Gazer was always a thorn in my side, and now he and Stargazer can be so much more useful, with other magicians to keep their pendulum scales at their maximums. Now let's rush along towards OAFDRAGON Magician, another one with a lot of stuff he can do. He's good. As a pendulum, OAFDRAGON Magician can, with a little help from another magician in the other pendulum zone, take face-up magician and Odd Eye's pendulum monsters from the extra deck and add them to your hand. Once they've been sent to the extra deck, it's usually hard to get pendulum monsters back into the pendulum zone, but with this it gets a lot easier. Want to use Wisdom Eye's effect again? Yank him back out of the extra deck with OAFDRAGON. I mean, both spots will still be occupied by OAFDRAGON and another wizard, but still, it opens up the possibility. Now as a monster, he occupies a bit of a unique role. Remember when I said that pendulum decks usually have bad graveyard recovery? Well, when he's normal or special summoned, he can yank a magician or Odd Eye's pendulum monster out of the graveyard if they ended up there somehow. There's ways. Detached as Xyz material, discarded from the hand or deck, having their summon negated by Trap Hole or Solemn whatever. He acts as a good counter to stuff like that, though he's not the only card here that can pull pendulums out of the grave, and at least one other magician can pull herself out of the graveyard. Noble Dragon Magician is just a wall of text. As a pendulum, she's pretty bad. Pendulum value of 5, and her only pendulum effect is to be blown up if there's not a magician in the other zone. Her monster effect, though, is the big one. Spellcaster Pendulum Tuner effect, running out of space in those boxes, huh, Konami? Now she starts off with a wall of restrictions. Can only be used to synchro summon a dragon monster, and if the other synchro materials aren't Odd Eyes monsters, it goes to the bottom of the deck rather than the graveyard. Or, well, extra deck, as the case is with her. Now here's the good part of it. If she's in your hand or graveyard, you can reduce the level of an Odd Eyes monster on your side of the field by 3 to special summon her. Since most Odd Eyes monsters are level 7, you can use them to instantly synchro summon for a level 7 dragon synchro monster. You can use that to get out stuff like Ancient Fairy or Black Rose Dragon, but I think the best option for this deck, well actually Black Rose or Black Rose Moonlight wouldn't be bad ideas, but I think the synchro monster of the deck offers a pretty good option, Odd Eye's Meteor Burst Dragon. Odd Eyes gets everywhere. I think by now there's every kind except maybe normal monster. Effect Pendulum, Synchro, Fusion, Ritual, Xyz Pendulum. What? Anyway, Synchro first. Odd Eye's Meteor Burst Dragon has a couple uses. While it's on the field, it keeps monster effects from activating during the battle phase. Using this, combined with Time Gazer and Stargazer's Pendulum effects, to keep spells and traps from activating when Pendulum monsters battle, you can use them as a triumvirate to protect powerful Pendulum monsters when they battle from almost any effects. But that's only one use of it. Almost sorry to say that the biggest use of Meteor Burst is just a stepping stone to something better. Its other effect is that when it's summoned, you can sacrifice its ability to attack for the turn to special summon a monster from your Pendulum zone. Frees up a space, and if you planned it right, maybe you could be summoning Odd Eye's Pendulum Dragon, or something. Or another monster you can use to access the aforementioned triumvirate of Pendulum protection. But one way or another, you want to get Odd Eye's Pendulum or another level 7 monster out, so you can overlay them for the deck's Xyz monster, Odd Eye's Absolute Dragon, the real power here. I hate when synchros get shafted. Unfortunately though, that seems to be all that happens to them these days, and this deck makes the game's position on them clear. They are a means to an end for the most part. Odd Eye's Meteor Burst is practically just a means to the end of Absolute. Odd Eye's Absolute Dragon takes 2 level 7 monsters, and when a monster attacks, it can negate the attack, Utopia style, by detaching a material, but then special summons an Odd Eyes monster from your hand or graveyard, possibly even the material you just detached. However, if you used Meteor Burst to summon it, and you pull it back from the graveyard after detaching it, you can special summon another monster from your Pendulum Zone. But you can only use one of its effects per turn, so try to remember that if you lose it anyway during the turn you use that effect, because if you lose it after properly Xyz summoning, you can special summon an Odd Eyes monster from the extra deck. This can mean Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon that was sent there, or one inside the extra deck, like another Meteor Burst, maybe Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon, or Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. Now, I've been going on about Magician Pendulum monsters and Odd Eyes variations, but there's one more new monster in the deck, and it's the third type in the Triforce of Yuya-themed Pendulum decks, a Performable. You know, if you think about it, that kind of applies. The Performables are the underdogs. They're kind of weird outcasts, but they do their best to be tricky and strong anyway, so they're kind of courage. And then the Magicians are obviously Wisdom, and then Odd Eyes is Power. Boom! Yuya's Link. Well, you know, he might be. I haven't actually watched a single episode of that show yet, so who knows. Maybe I'll watch it eventually. I am kind of interested. Anyway, back on topic. The new Performable is one of the few not animal-themed Performables. It's Performable Skullcrobat Joker, and this guy is just a utilitarian bro. As a Pendulum, he's got a scale of 8, with the restriction that he can only summon, say it with me, Magician, Odd Eyes, and Performable monsters. Big surprise. But a scale of 8 is nothing to scoff at. As a monster, besides being an 1800 attack quick beat stick, when he's normal summoned, you can grab a Sing It With Me Kids, Magician, Pendulum, Odd Eyes, or Performable monster from your deck and into your hand. Honestly, what else can I say about him? That just sums it up. He's great. And he's the last new monster. But not the last new card. Now we can move on to the new spells. Let's start with Pendulum Call. You can tell it's new because it has Pulsey and Pity on it. Let's start with the bad news. You can only activate it once per turn, and if you used a Magician's Pendulum effect already this turn, you can't activate it. This means you have to choose to activate it early in your turn. Now to how cheap it is. You can discard one card to get 2 Magician Pendulum monsters from your deck to your hand on one more condition. They have to have different names. Dun, dun, dun. Take that. As a side effect, until the end of your opponent's next turn, Magicians in your Pendulum zones can't be destroyed. It's pretty fantastic, unless you want to blow them up yourself to make space. Then it's not so good. Honestly though, being able to just pick and choose your Pendulums from your deck is quite the luxury. And of course, can work into some neat strategies. Like, say I use it to get Pulsey and Pity to my hand, play them, and summon, say, like, Odd Eyes Pendulum, get out Noble Dragon Magician, use her and Odd Eyes Pendulum to synchro summon for Black Rose Dragon, blow up everything, but my Magicians are protected. And I just Pendulum summon back everything I just used, and my opponent's field is clear. Hey, just came up with that off the top of my head. And now for something completely different. Oh wait, did I say different? I meant something incredibly similar. And the last new card here, Sky Iris, a field spell for the Performagician Eyes. Remember Starlight Junction from September's deck? This is a similar idea. It protects Performagician Eye Pendulums in your zones from being targeted by anything of your opponent's. Why just your opponent's effects? Because Sky Iris can, once per turn, blow up one of your face-up cards to call an Odd Eyes monster from the deck to your hand. And why not make it one of your Pendulums to send them to the extra deck to be summoned back later? Quick aside, does anyone else feel like since they made it so that each player could play a field spell, they've gotten a lot more personal and less beneficial for your opponent? I've had times where Gates of Dark World or Mystic Plasma Zone have worked against me. But Realm of Light, Starlight Junction, Sky Iris, it's like your opponent can't use them at all. Just something I noticed. Well, that's all the new cards, but I want to drag this out a little longer, talking about the deck as a whole and some great additions you can throw in. This deck obviously comes with Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, which if you're not familiar with it, now's the time to get familiar. It also has a bunch of other level 7 monsters to facilitate summoning Odd Eyes Absolute, and fit into the 1 to 8 scale some of the Magicians provide more than ever before. Dragon Pit's level 7, as well as the old beat stick Metaphys Arm Dragon, the easy to use Xyz material of Fossilier Dragon, and the easy summon and funtime mind games of Chaos Hunter. I like her style. She is going right into my Dark World deck. You get a few Performables, including Performable Trump Witch, who can substitute for Polymerization, so you can get out the awesome Rune Eyes Pendulum Dragon, also included. Rune Eyes is a goddamn monster. Gets a turn of immunity if it was summoned using a Pendulum summoned monster, and if the spellcaster used in its fusion was level 5 or higher, it gets 3 attacks a turn, and otherwise only 2 attacks. Ooh. It doesn't get benefits from Odd Eyes cards, but damn son, that's some power it's packing. There's a pile of spell cards that help out Pendulums, and for some reason Summoner's Art. It pulls normal monsters level 5 or higher from your deck to your hand, but there's only 2 of them in the deck, Metaphys Dragon and Pity. Guess having them on hand is super useful. Aside from that, some trivia. There's a few of the monsters that accompanied the possessed versions of the familiars. Remember them? They were uncomfortably popular. Ooh, I wonder if they still are. Haven't heard people talk about them in a while. Did they ever actually make a light charmer? They probably did. I'll look it up and put up a picture if they did. I used to have a collection of them too before a water leak took care of most of my cards. Well, if I thought the Synchron Extreme review was long, this one's blowing out of the water, and I'm not even done yet. Last part, I promise. Things you can add. I'll keep this as short as I can because only a few things pop to mind. Double Cyclone is great. I think I mentioned it in my Synchron Extreme review. Maybe I didn't actually. It wasn't new. Anyway, it's fantastic. It blows up one of your opponent's spells and traps and one of yours. That can clear out your Pendulum zones easy. Any Odd Eyes probably fit. Odd Eyes Vortex, Odd Eyes Gravity, Beast Eyes Pendulum, Odd Eyes Saber. Grab him if you can. Odd Eyes Saber is fantastic, and I'm pretty sure that if you're in North America, the Saber Force starter deck isn't that hard to find. As I mentioned before, any level 7 Synchro Dragon monster, like Black Rose Moonlight, Ancient Fairy, and her manga counterpart, don't remember what she was. Stuff like that. Great help. I'm sure there's more. Like, I had one in my mind. Just a second. Bring out the giant binder here. So flipping through this last night. No, that's 8 star. I saw something that... Red Wyvern. Red Wyvern would be a good one to add. Anyway, enough book flipping. Gotta close this up before I start bragging about my cards. And if you want to go whole hog with the Odd Eyes thing and get lucky with Crash of Rebellion. And if you want to go whole hog and get lucky with Clash of Rebellion packs, you can try to go for gold with Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon and Zang whatever Magician. Zang-Ki Magician can allow you to use Xyz monsters as Xyz material. Overlay it on Odd Eyes Absolute with Zing Zang's effect, or use a rank 5 Xyz Dragon with rank up magic Astral's Force and lay absolute waste to your opponent. Look up that thing's powers on your own time. Suffice to say, it's a game changer. Mass destruction and multi-attack. The only cost is how hard it is to summon right. Well, I think I've yanked your ears for more than long enough. Damn Pendulum monsters, and most of them having 2 effects. Hopefully that'll get most of you started. Thanks for watching and listening and whatnot. Hopefully I did a pretty comprehensive review of this. It's a pretty awesome deck. Yeah, I don't know how to end videos. What did I say last time? Keep on driving? Yeah, I'm totally gonna play that over this part to mask my exit. Crazy, keep on driving. 走れ振り返ることなんてできないわ Way low Keep on running so